Live from Burnham, it's the Road Show Week 2, Golden Black Live. Stacy Clarity, Kyle Charters, Alan Karpik, hopefully poor Cammy back there. We tried to fill her with all these new names for the show. Guys, we're here to talk about Purdue Rose Bowl memories, but first and foremost, Purdue has a football game tomorrow, and that's what you guys are concerned about, as I am too. Purdue, Iowa, and the Boilermakers in homecoming. And again, by the time this time of the week, we were always at the point where we talked about it a lot. But Stacy, what does Purdue have to do to get a back-to-back victory for the first time since 2012?
It's pretty much the same thing it has to do every week to win.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anything really different with the opponent this week. You know, they got to stop the run. Iowa's going to do what Iowa does, and Purdue thinks it knows what that is. So it's a matter of just, can you stop what you know is coming? So it's going to be, Purdue's defense is going to have to be really disciplined, as it usually is, and all the specifics on that are on our pregame show or on the site this week, on how they need to go about that. And I think offensively, you got to run the ball. Again, just something that, Purdue really needs to do. Markel Jones will be back this week, Daryl Hazel said, coming off of that shoulder injury. I'm sure that I can't say what I was going to say. So anyway, they're going to have Brian Langford-Johnson back as well, and maybe like a three-headed monster, but it'll be interesting to see how they divide those carries up. The offense has got to score points, certainly, to have a shot.
I'm trying to figure out what you were going to say.
I was going to speculate on Jones' injury.
No, don't do that. But body language this week, Kyle, you watched him in practice Tuesday earlier in the day, and any different than,
No, I think that they feel good about, beating Illinois, but they have felt good. And how many times have we been here and sort of all been swayed toward feeling like Purdue's turned a corner? I think for us that has sort of ended earlier this year, where we're not going to get sucked into feeling like Purdue's turned a corner after one victory. And I think now we're all sort of on a series here where we're picking against Purdue, and we'll put the predictions up on the site here in a couple hours, but I feel like that's probably going to happen again this week, just because, they played well in the win last week, but it was against Illinois. Played well-ish, and it was against Illinois. It was with Illinois' quarterback being knocked out. Now, don't take anything away from Purdue, because they made the plays that they had to make down the stretch, but I'm just not sure how much of that translates to Iowa, which has better players, more physical players. They've played a system, unlike Illinois, which has played in the system for 5 weeks. Iowa's done it for 18 years. I just think that the Hawkeyes present entirely different kind of challenges.
No question that it's going to be a challenge. Iowa is not a team that's going to doesn't appear will roll over you offensively or scare you, but it's just the way that they had. Even Marcus Freeman on Wednesday painted that picture more from what they do offensively. But what challenges for the Purdue defense? I mean, we talked about stopping the run. Beathard hasn't played as well, arguably, as, and I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, but his numbers maybe haven't been as good. But what opportunities does the Purdue defense have? What does it have to do? Can it get pressure, I guess, is the long story question.
I mean, teams have, and that's one reason why Iowa completely switched up its offensive line last week. I mean, they had the same 5 starters, but 3 of those guys were in new spots, and it seemed to work pretty well. They only scored 14 points, but they didn't allow any sacks, and I think they ran the ball relatively well. So, but Purdue saw what happened 2 weeks before that when, Minnesota, Northwestern had like 6 sacks, and I talked to Evan Panfil, defensive end for Purdue this week, and he said, we saw that. We have the intention of trying to get pressure, but we have to stop the run. If we don't stop the run, none of that matters, because if we don't make them throw, then you can't get pressure. And because Iowa will do some kind of quick passing game to get the ball out of his hands relatively quickly, we think, as well. But a lot of that, again, is the zone. They're going to run, different inside-outside zone. It's going to look the same. The line's all going to move the same. So you're going to, just as a defense, go that way. And then the one time they're going to pull it out and roll and, hopefully everybody's still where they're supposed to be. And that's what is really going to be the key is, are you disciplined against the play action of where that tight end is, if he's sneaking out? I mean, I think even last season we saw that against Purdue where they got beat on a couple of those. So again, it's the same thing that they've been preparing for. They just have to be a defense that's really disciplined. We've seen it at times, and we haven't seen it at other times.
I think, Purdue will be helped a little bit by the fact that I think Beathard's a little bit nicked up. He's not maybe as mobile as what he has been in the past. Apparently suffered a little bit of a knee injury in the preseason. which has kept him from running around. And then without Vandenberg out there, they just don't have a big play receiver, at least a known big play receiver.
Right.
So, I don't think that the threat, at least on the perimeter, is quite as big as what it has been in the past for Iowa. So, maybe you can get away with taking some more risks in the secondary if you're Purdue, trying to do something more to stop the run. We've seen them at times bring the safety down a little bit. Maybe they do that more often. So I think that can help Purdue, but ultimately I feel like if this is going to be a close game, I'm not sure it is, but if it is, then Iowa has shown over the years a better ability to make those plays. Now, they haven't a couple times this year against Northwestern and against North Dakota, but they have also. I mean, they had to get a stop against Rutgers. It was Rutgers, but they had to get a stop against Rutgers.
At the 5-yard line.
Yeah, and they had to get a big play offensively against Minnesota last week to get the win. So they have done things to be able to win games, and Purdue's done it once. It was last week.
That noise you're hearing in the background is from the Rose Bowl, not just Kyle and Stacy talking, but the Rose Bowl reunion. They're having a good old time. Hopefully they've stayed away from the beer a little bit before we have our guests on at 2:20 and 2:40. We'll have a couple different sets of members of the team. We're here live from Bruno's Swiss Inn, and Orlando White, very gracious to host us. And Tom Campbell's coming here to take our picture, which is good. So it's the internet. So, and we want to also thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, and of course Triple X, Purdue tradition since 1929, and John Basham, the good folks at Basham Rental, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson. We're thankful for all of them, and of course all their support over the period of time. Now this is homecoming, a time. Even though we know the crowd will not be huge tomorrow, but a chance to, Purdue has not fared well in homecoming in a long time.
Yeah.
Because 2011 was the last time that they won. But you got the Rose Bowl team, you got some people a chance to win some hearts and minds from a football team perspective. From a fan base, where do you think the fan base is looking at this thing from that standpoint?
I don't know. I don't think that in one game or two games you're going to win them back at this point. I just don't. As we've said, we've felt bitten by the fact that they haven't played well in those second games after victories. I think, if we're feeling that way, then certainly the fan base is, who's a lot more, invested in the wins and losses. So I think that it's going to be hard to do that unless you could somehow put together a string. And I think you can win a game. I still feel like maybe you can win a game here or there, but they just don't have enough depth of talent to be able to put it together week in and week out against better opponents.
Nothing more to say. It's interesting. We posted on headlines this morning about, which is a tweet that was out, or something from ESPN, where they figure out the percentage chances that the Boilermakers have for the remaining games, and I think that this was not one of the high ones. That I think that Northwestern was the highest at 29%, I want to say. And whether that's the point is, Purdue's going to be an underdog in every one of its games down the stretch as it sits right now, and therein lies the challenge for the Boilermakers. The play of Langford Johnson and Richie Worship last week in terms of at least bringing some energy. And I know Markel Jones is expected back. Do you guys expect to see those two guys still in the rotation as much? I mean, more than they would have been obviously 2 weeks ago, but you expect them to get touches throughout the course of the game?
I think so. I mean, it's clear Markel Jones is their best player. So you need to find the right ratio or whatever of that, because even when he, obviously wasn't healthy 2 weeks ago or whatever it was when he did play, I mean, he still was the guy who was getting the bulk of that. So I wouldn't guess that there's going to be a huge sway in the amount of carries or the amount of snaps that Jones gets if he's feeling well enough to be out there. Now, obviously, Langford Johnson did well when he had rhythm and when he was out there, and I talked to him about that this week. You got to be in a series and then a series and then a series, and I think for him as a young guy, that helps him to be out there for more than just 2 plays here and 2 plays there. So I think he would probably be better as a guy who got a bunch of snaps in a row. I don't think that's going to happen though. Maybe he'll get a series or something like that, and maybe Worship will get a handful of plays, but I think especially Worship probably won't get as many as he did last week with Markel Jones back, just because they feel like Langford Johnson is a home run guy and Worship is maybe more of a grinder. And Markel can be the grinder. Now, if he isn't feeling great, then maybe you put Worship in for a short yardage situation. But we'll just have to kind of see all those things.
How well did Langford Johnson block and do the other things that you needed to have done at that position? I mean, for a young guy.
I think he was okay. I mean, he's not a complete back because he's a first-year guy, and those first-year guys just aren't. I mean, Markel had a pretty good year as a first-year guy doing a lot of different things last season. But when you watch them in practice and they do those different kind of drills, whether it's chipping, or picking up blitzes and stuff, those guys still make a lot of mistakes. And it's just going to take time. And that's the thing, when you don't get a lot of game reps, then it's hard to really simulate that truly in practice. Because you're not really chipping guys and you're not, really doing those things. So he'll get better, but they're not the best. Which they shouldn't be either.
I'm just listening to the yelling going on.
I'm kind of listening to what's going on because I'm trying to figure out where my guests will be for the next segment, or how much we need to.
I think the Purdue's offensive line I thought was really good, especially in run blocking, and was pretty good. They got some help.
How many times were they tested in the passing? You truly tested in a drop back situation since you count.
You mean as far as Illinois bringing pressure?
Yes.
I don't think Illinois brought that much pressure, but I think Purdue did a pretty good job of Illinois felt like it could get pressure off the end just with the four-man front, I think, and I think Purdue took them out of that pretty early, and maybe they didn't adjust, but I thought Purdue's run blocking was really good, better than what I think we could have expected because they were just so poor against Maryland. I don't know, maybe some of that was Illinois' front just wasn't very good, but I felt like Purdue was, especially its interior three guys, and Sermon stood out a couple times too in run blocking. I thought they were very active. Jordan Bruce had a great game, I thought, blocked a couple times for some of those big runs by Worship and Langford Johnson. So, I think that they deserve a lot of credit too. Now those two young guys played well, but Purdue's front was really good.
Yeah, I think that's all things that, again, all will have to go well for Purdue if the Boilermakers are going to make it as we always say, or I always say, a four-quarter game. We'll see what happens there. Linebacker Juwan Bentley, and again, we're not talking specifically about injuries, but we are talking about the fact he didn't play last week and was hurt the week before. How much did they have to make up for him, at least against Illinois? And again, the linebackers did well enough to win the football game, I guess, but what was your view there?
Darrell Hazley did say that Bentley is questionable this week. I talked to Juwan this week, and I did not get the feeling that he was going to play Saturday, so I feel comfortable saying that. But when you look at this, I mean, Jimmy Herman is a guy who was a starter.
I thought he played okay.
And I thought he played okay. I mean, he played more. I would have to go back and look at the snap count. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But he played more than Izuchukwu, pretty sure. So I think that they feel maybe more comfortable with Herman at this point. The one thing that Herman didn't do early in his career that he's done more of late is actually tackle people. So, and I kind of am saying that jokingly because, Jimmy has obviously talked about that. And I think there were times that he really did get in there and mix it up in the goal line situation to the start, that first series. He was in there and really getting his face in places. And so I think certainly Juwan Bentley is one of their best players, and if he's not playing, it hurts you. But I think that Herman had a pretty good week, that it didn't kill him.
Yeah, I thought he looked active to me, and we've seen Jimmy at times when he's been healthy have put together some pretty good games. So he appears to be healthy right now, and I think that he can, for this short stretch. You want Bentley, but I think in this short stretch he can play pretty well for Purdue. Marcus Bailey was really good.
Yeah,
he might be the guy who is really coming on right now for Purdue. Seems to, as we've talked about before, has some instinct for the position.
Yes.
I think maybe you're seeing that even a little bit now. He made two plays. The one at the goal line on the first series where he just darts right around the blocker, they didn't give him a tackle for loss on that, so the running back must have got right back to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I think it was.
But I thought that was a great play. Then later, I think maybe the third quarter, he darts through a line of blockers and tackles Crouch for no gain also. So I just think those are two plays where it sort of shows up that he's figuring out what he's doing and it's allowing him to play pretty fast. And I thought he did pretty good.
Live from Bruno's Swiss Inn here on the right across the way from Wabash Landing in West Lafayette, part of the Rose Bowl reunion weekend here in West Lafayette. Last question before we let you go. Now that Chris is done, I feel like they'll be released so like my second segment guest can come kicking, winning a game in the last minute. J.D. Dellinger, who made a play also, made 2 field goals, and I think I looked it up that Iowa's longest field goal was just 28 yards. As the guy's 4 for 4. I can't remember, I'm not pulling up his name off the top of my head, but. Watching Dellinger in practice, what is his range? I mean, how far can he? What's the deepest you think he can really go?
They don't really kick long field goals in
Yeah.
practice, but in training camp and in the kick scrimmage, I mean, he was making them in the 40s.
Yeah.
I think he made a 49-yarder in training camp, 48 or 49, maybe both 48 and 49, something like that.
Yeah.
It was funny because I talked to him the week leading into that game where he was only 2 of 5 after the first, 4 games or whatever, and he looked like he didn't want to talk to me. I think he was a little nervous, just because how's it going? Now, so, I haven't really made kicks. I'm slow, kind of slow to get going. But, he said, I'm going to try to stay confident.
Yeah.
It might be hard, but I'm going to try to stay confident. And I thought it was interesting after the game. He said, I just had fun. So I think somebody talked to him, just loosen up, just go out there and just kick it. And so that might have helped him.
I think
kind of more relaxed.
he did a game win when his game-winning run was just like an NFL guy did. He did a great job.
Just don't get hurt. What?
Right?
What would we be talking about now if he missed? I mean,
Yeah.
Daryl Hazel put a lot of confidence in
I
a
agree.
freshman kicker who coming into the game had been 2 for 5.
But you got to be able to hit a 28-yarder, right?
Well, you have a first and 10 at the 11.
Yeah.
Right.
All you got to do is score.
And there's no
And
clock.
I mean,
It's like baseball at that point.
Purdue has to win. Daryl Hazel has to win. I don't think these are, any revelations here,
Right.
but man, they settled for a
That's
field
what-
goal
yeah.
when they could have gotten the ball. I mean, Richie had run
What is it, third down?
No,
6 and 8.
It was third down, but he ran 6 and 8 yards, first and 10 at the 11. Richie runs on first down, gets 1 yard, so you're
Yeah.
second down from the 10.
Then they set it up.
And then
they
you
set
set
it
up.
up and-
I know. I think I was
I'm
on.
okay with that. You got to do it on third down. I've seen coaches mess that up and do it on fourth down, which would be silly.
Well, Lovey screwed it up too
Yeah,
because he should have taken that timeout with about 9 seconds at the end of regulation because it was third down, right? And
Yeah, it was
that
third and
sort
long,
of
I think.
negated the idea that it was third down when he waved that clock. I don't know if they knew the clock was going to restart. They
Yeah.
might have panicked a little late there, but I don't know, man. We'd be
maybe
having a different
discussion.
conversation.
We're going to end our discussion right now and let you guys go and just meditate till kickoff tomorrow. I'm sure you'll do that. And your predictions will be on the site. We think the Boilermakers probably are swimming upstream, but we thought that last
They're
week
gonna play
as
it
well.
anyway.
That's right. So that is true. We're not. So all right, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to bring in Marion Griffin and George Katavlis for segment 2. Rose Bowl heroes, both of them, but George Katavlis made the famous interception on the 2-point conversion. We'll talk to George and Marion, and then bring in Jim Bach and Jim Finley for segment 3. At least that's the schedule for right now. We'll see you in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.